Is there anything you long for?
I long for the day where I get to stop writing on my terms.
Where you get to stop writing on your terms?
Yeah. It's almost like you come out of a gym, right? Not that I know anything about that, but it's like, I'm starting to think that being a writer is kind of like a condition rather than a real talent. I think.
Wait, what? Come on.
I do.
I'm Rachel Martin, and this is Wildcard, the game where cards control the conversation. My guest this week is author and poet Ocean Vuong. Whether it's his poems or his novels, or just listening to him talk about how he sees the world, it's hard to come away from an experience with Ocean Vuong and not be changed in some way. Ocean's a professor of creative writing at NYU. His newest book is called The Emperor of Gladness, and I am so happy to welcome Ocean Vuong to Wildcard. Hi!
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here.
Round one, memories. First three cards. Here we go. 1, 2, or 3.
We gotta go with the middle, 2.
The middle is calling you. What's a routine from your childhood that you miss?
Oh, gosh. Staring at the ceiling.
Oh.
Such a 90s childhood thing.
I
Now
love that
it's
was
a
the
skill.
first thing to come to mind.
Well, the subtext of that is sadness, poverty, stasis,
Okay.
dreaming, but also
Not so romantic.
but also dreaming. I remember laying on the floor. My favorite time was when I got the apartment to myself because there were 7 of us in one tenement, and when my family, all of whom were women who would go shopping or go out to the mall, I would stay home and I would just stare at the ceiling and listen to the world.
What did the ceiling look like?
It was this kind of popcorn, cheap, white, beige ceiling, and I would pretend they were little mountains and, dream about walking and hiking through it, and then my mind just kept on building its own narrative. I'm starting to think that being a writer is kind of like a condition rather than a real talent. I think you build.
Wait, what? Come on.
I do. I think because the condition of asking more of the world is it gets you to then develop the talent. But if you don't have that curiosity of saying, like, what else is there? It can't be just a ceiling. Or where is this coming from?
Yeah.
This idea that you move forward into the world. Then you say, how do I describe this? Oh, sentences, grammar, structure, subordinate clause, building tension. And you see this a lot in the classroom. It's curiosity above all. But I think you can develop the desire to ask more of the world and to develop your own curiosity. And it's rewarding to see that you can stare. You can be a sad gay boy in Hartford staring at the ceiling, and eventually you can talk on NPR.
Okay, second question. 1, 2, or 3?
All right, let's go with 3.
3. What have you learned to appreciate about your hometown over time?
That in many ways, what I thought was this strange, unique place was actually a microcosm of America at large. When I was researching this book further about Hartford and where I came from, I stumbled on YouTube.
We should just say, sorry, Ocean, we should just say that your book does take place in a fictionalized version of your hometown.
Yes, yeah. And The Emperor of Gladness takes place in a fictional East Hartford, Connecticut, East Gladness. And when I was researching the book, I stumbled upon YouTube videos of Hartford. And there's a subgenre, I'm not sure if you're familiar, on YouTube of this poverty porn where people would drive through quote-unquote ghettos or blighted neighborhoods and record. And it was kind of like this beguiling experience to see your home be treated as entertainment for someone in, another country. And then the comments from Norway or Germany saying, wow, I didn't know America was, so run down. And meanwhile, I'm like, oh, that's the park I used to play at.
Yeah, right.
That's where I had my first sour belt candy, that's where my uncle
Yeah.
and I used to go. So it's a really jarring experience where you leave and you grow up from a place and realize that it's now a site of this kind of pitiful infatuation for the rest of the world.
But what was childhood like? I mean, your family had immigrated there from Vietnam via a refugee camp. I mean, this was, I don't know if it's fair to say it was the promised land, but it was a place where good things were supposed to happen to your family, or your mother had hoped that they would. And so there was a lot of expectation around it. And it sounded like you have many lovely memories of being there.
100%. My early memory of living in that tenement sponsored by the Salvation Army was my grandmother going up to the windows. She's never seen, you know, I think they're called hanging windows, just the thing where you push up and then you lock. Basic. But we've never had that, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that they were living in a hut on the rice paddy. It sounds like an abstraction or a symbol of rural life in Vietnam, but we literally lived on the rice paddy. And so when we went to the refugee camp, it was all tin shacks in 4 quadrants, 4 families. I mean, to put it crudely, it looked like a pig pen. At least that's how they described it. So when we got to this Hartford apartment, 7 of us in 1 bedroom, we didn't have the concept of bedrooms. So for us, the apartment was just one
Separate sleeping space, yeah.
hallway. I mean, there was a tiny kitchen, but we prepared food in the living room, on newspaper spread out, and the bedroom was just more. It was just another, place to be. It was all public space. And in the tenement, you would open the door and you would live in the hallway. So that was also a village. You would have Jamaican immigrants, Haitian cooking, reggaeton, gospel music, Puerto Ricans, frying plantains, rice and peas, right, from Jamaicans, and then fish sauce and, a boom reel that my grandmother would make. So it was, I was delighted it was such a rich, rich place. And again, my grandmother said, look at this window. She would lift it and close it. Look how strong it is. And yes, there were gunshots. Hartford, I think for a long time, was either number 7 or 8 in murder capital in the country. But these women were war-worn. They were, we think about epigenetic trauma, but I'd also like to reframe that as epigenetic strength as well, right? The trauma comes on one side of a coin that also has strength on it.
Right.
And they would just brush it off. They're like, oh, gunshots, it's not as bad as a napalm, not as bad as an AK-47. They would describe the sound of those, automatic weapons. And as a kid, you're like, all right, well, if the matriarch says this is not as bad, then it's not as bad.
Yeah, your grandmother taught you how to do that by example. Okay. 3 more.
Am I speaking in too long paragraphs?
Nope.
Okay, great.
Nope.
I have this mental illness where I speak in paragraphs. It's really great for my students, horrifying for my family, especially after midnight, So I'm glad it's working somewhere.
Just be you. Just
All right.
be you.
So I guess
1, 2, or 3.
I guess we got to go with 1 now, right?
1. What's something early in life that made you appreciate beauty?
Oh my gosh. My mother and I were pushing a cart to the grocery store, and we had this kind of, this metal cart that we would push to the sea town. And then we saw what was very clearly, to me later on, blood on the sidewalk. And we saw this trail of blood, and I noticed it first because I was slower to the ground. And I said, what is that? And my mother, she paused, and then she looked up really quickly, and then you can feel when your mother is alarmed, and she just said, she was very frank with me always. She said, "It looks like blood, but let's just keep going. We'll keep going." And of course, when your mother says, "Don't look at something," you're looking. So I kept looking, like looking, and then she said, "Okay, he's not gonna do it, and he's not gonna look up." So she started to point out birds in the tree, and this is like winter. I think it's like February. And I wrote about this in my first novel, where she just started pointing. Oh, look at that yellow bird. Do you see that
Trying
bird?
to distract you from the blood, yeah.
And I didn't see them because they didn't exist. Look at that. She didn't have the words for them either, so she's just describing tropical birds from Vietnam that she saw as a kid, but she didn't have the name for them. It's like, oh, there's this one with a beautiful tail. Do you see that? Look, it's jumping up to the tree. And then that turned into narrative, right? Oh, look, it's going to the kid, the chicks. You see the chicks, and now they're flying to the next tree. Look at, they're following us. And she's creating this whole, like, painting. And I knew it was fake, but when your mother's so interested in something, you kind of go along, right? And after a while, I'm like, I still see them. I see the blood, and I still see the birds. Why is that? That becomes such a core memory to me, because again, in retrospect, I was like, gosh, they were the first poets. And maybe there were poets before them, like I'm just the first literate one.
But your mom was a storyteller. Your mom was a poet.
And it had a function. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be a famous author. I want to win a prize. It was, how do I protect my son?
Right.
With nothing. And I'm still startled by that what is it about her that had that impulse? But maybe all mothers do. You put 10 mothers in that situation, and I bet good money that most of them would do something very similar.
I like the idea that the beauty and the pain are married together in your memory, that are sewn together.
Yeah.
Because that's life, and learning to acknowledge the pain and then look up, because it will still be there. The stain will still be on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But look up at imaginary birds is a lovely idea.
And I think so much of my work, you're spot on, because I think so much of my work is the dual relationship of those things, and not even that they're binary opposites, but that sometimes they're in the same space. And in fact, beauty becomes a medicinal response to the ugliness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't erase the ugliness at all. In fact, it sutures it into a kind of symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Okay, before we start round two, let's talk about your newest book. It is so beautiful, The Emperor of Gladness. I read somewhere that the writer Zadie Smith convinced you to write this book while the two of you were on a boat in Paris. Is that a true thing?
100%. 100%.
That sounds like the most amazing boat ride ever. What was that scene?
She taught fiction at NYU for decades, and I was a student while she taught in the fiction program. And part of the NYU program was this Writers in Paris program in the summers, and a treat that celebrates the students there is that, they rent a boat and have the students kind of just enjoy, after weeks of hard work, working on their manuscripts. And it's a commingling, of folks. And I was on the boat with Zadie, and we were getting to know each other. It was the first time meeting each other. And we were just talking about our working class roots. We really bonded, from that. And I was describing this sort of rather precarious moment in my life where, after sleeping in Penn Station for 2.5 weeks, after I dropped out of business school.
Ocean, I have to ask you, why were you sleeping in Penn Station? Why didn't you just go home?
I was too ashamed to go home to my mother in Hartford empty-handed. She was so proud of having a kid in college. She would even have a brochure of the university at her desk at the nail salon. She couldn't pronounce it, couldn't read it, but she would just hold that up and say, "My son goes here," to her clients. And
I mean, this is part of the book, The Emperor of Gladness.
yes.
That the main character, Hai, has lied to his mom. He
Yeah.
tells her that he's going off to medical school
In Boston.
and
yeah.
in Boston, and he does not go. In fact, he stays home. And this is part of what you were telling Zadie Smith, and she just heard this story and was like, "You need to write this. I know this is your life,
In a
but you
very
need to write
fun,
this."
tongue-in-cheek way, she said, "If you don't write this book, I will."
I
And it was a very kind of, charming tongue-in-cheek thing. But it was that exact phrase was what made me believe in it as something viable for fiction because,
yeah.
I still had a lot of shame around it. I just thought, gosh, no one wants to hear about this. This is so weird and precarious. And Zadie Smith, another working class writer, turned to me and said, "I know that story. And,
Yeah.
if I lived through that, I would tell it." But I will never forget being in Penn Station. And I went on a date, a casual date with a guy. I thought I was 19. I was like, how will I normalize this horrible condition that I'm in? I'll go on OkCupid because it's free and I'll make an account and I'm going to date. And so I tried to normalize my life by dating, and I met this guy. And one day I just told him, I said, "I'm kind of like staying at Penn Station. It's not a big deal. It's fine. I'm going to college, And he looked perplexed, and then we left, and I thought, gosh, that's the last time I'm going to see him. Like, that's it. I'm going to get blocked or whatever. A couple of days later, he calls me. He says, "I talked to my mom. My grandmother lives in Richmond Hill. She's 84 years old. She won't go to a home. She has dementia." Lord knows for me what dementia meant at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a whole house. If you stay there, if you just take care of her, if she really needs someone just to be there, if she falls, you can just stay there and go to school.
Ocean. This is the other part of the story in the book.
Yeah.
Just to paraphrase for people, Hai, the main character, is saved. He's on the precipice of ending his life, and he is saved because he notices an elderly woman who's messing around with her laundry in the wind.
Yeah.
And she distracts him away from ending his life, and it proceeds to unfold this beautiful friendship of care and love with this young man and this older woman. And so this happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I ended up living with her, and it's a strange thing, like, okay, 17 years later, that boy is now my husband. And
No.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's my partner, Peter. And one day we looked at each other, we said, "You know what? This is kind of a family. Are we already doing this?" And we just nodded and said, "Let's just do this." And, that's 17 years ago.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I had no idea. It's such a beautiful book. I've recommended it to everyone I know. Next round.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Insights, 1, 2, 3.
2.
How much do you rely on the validation of others?
I think when I was much younger, I really needed it. It's so important. Praise is so important, but it's also intoxicating. You're so hungry for it as a young writer. Someone please tell me, because you want someone to say you're in the right room, you're on the right path. You should be a poet. I just really needed people to say, yes, you should set up camp here. And that was so important. But it could be a slippery slope. And I think you do have to kind of divest yourself of the need for that, because in Buddhism we have this idea called the 8 winds. There's 4 winds of praise and 4 winds of ridicule, criticism, hatred. And if the tree sways with praise, it will be uprooted. If it sways with criticism, it will also be uprooted. So the idea is to actually go downward and strengthen your roots so that you're invincible to both praise and ridicule. And I learned that early on as an artist, and that has been my goal ever since. Some days better than others. For me, it's now not so much validation, but having people you trust tell you that you were true to yourself.
Yeah.
That maybe that's
And
validation.
that's what it means to go deeper. That's
Yeah.
what it means to root yourself so that you're not vulnerable to praise or criticism to the
Because then
point
you're
of
just a
breaking.
leaf in the wind. And
Right.
if you surrender your life to weather systems, you don't have an autonomous life, right?
Yeah,
You're part
totally.
of something else, right? And so while you're alive, you get to decide where you put your body against the weather.
Wow. Okay, 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, 3.
3. How do you see your parents showing up in you?
Oh gosh, my father's penchant for storytelling is always there. Now we have a very dicey relationship, but I'm trying to rekindle it, and it's kind of this beautiful but befuddling realization how much of him is in me. When I'm seeing him, I said, "Wow, this man who loves stories." I never saw him as that. I saw him as someone who was so deeply violent and damaged and hurt by the world and felt betrayed and bitter by both the country he came from and the country he landed in. But after meeting him and seeing him again, after many, many years of estrangement, I saw a storyteller. And I said, "Oh, thank you for giving me this."
Was this before, may I ask, was
Yeah.
this reunion before or after your mom passed?
After my mom passed. And I
Do
knew...
you think
Yeah.
you could reframe him or revisit that relationship and look at him in a new way because your mom had gone?
Right away. You don't know who people are until the ground falls out of their life. And in this case, my mother passed. And I called him when my mother died as an obligatory thing. "Oh, hi, Dad. Mom is terminally ill, and she only has weeks." And he hopped on a plane, flew from LA to Hartford. I picked him up from the airport, and he says, "Take me to her." Straight from the gate. He goes right into the room. He, he goes right into the room and just kneels down, picks up her hand, kisses it. And they haven't seen each other in decades. And he uses the term am, which is a pronoun of endearment you often give to a beloved, particularly between heterosexual couples. It's complicated, Vietnamese pronouns, and he said am, and as if they were just married. And I never experienced their marriage because they broke up before I had a memory. I was 1 years old when they broke up. And I stood in the edge of this room watching my parents live like a kind of private life. And I realized they had this kind of debt to each other. And I also knew that he was a very imperfect person. But I looked at him there and I said, I want to know more about that person. And I'm still in that journey. But yeah, and my mother's just, I got her cheekbones. She's all I got her freckles. She's half Irish, so so she's all over me, and I think like her. I can't leave her anywhere.
Yeah.
I can't. But it was a surprise to see the tenderness my father had, because I've seen him display opposite behavior, and that was, it felt like I didn't know it was a gift that I was getting, a gift that was not given to me. It was not about me in that room. The world fell away,
Yeah.
but I was getting a gift through being able to witness it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah.
3 more.
Okay.
1, 2, or 3?
2.
2. Is there anything you long for?
I long for the day where I get to stop writing on my terms.
Where you get to stop writing on your terms?
Yeah. Where I get to look at my work and be satisfied and proud of it enough to stop it while I'm alive. I think that's very important to me. When I was about 20, I came home one day from class and I heard on NPR my hero Annie Dillard talking. And I immediately, like most people, I think, I thought, oh, Annie Dillard has a new book. What will I buy now? Immediately, take my money, right? And she was there to announce her retirement. And I think the unspoken elephant in the room was kind of like, well, what's wrong with you, right? That was kind of to me, that was kind of the vibe of the conversation. And she said, nothing. I got to my desk one day and realized I'd finished everything I wanted to do as a writer. And now I want the rest of my life to myself. And I never thought that was possible for anybody. Because, you're a young writer, everyone says, build the bibliography, build the body of work.
Well, and also, we talked about how it's a condition.
Yeah.
Right? Like it feels like a condition of yours that you must observe, that you must make sense of the world, that you need to put those observations on the page.
Yeah.
But you're saying that you can see an end to that, and not only can you see it, you long for it.
Yes. And that it's a condition that you cannot act on. That was really enticing to me. Because what I learned after writing the first 2 books, the book of poems and the first novel, and I was speaking to Ann Patchett about this a few weeks ago, and we kind of had this common recognition where I said, isn't it true that after you write a book, your sense of the world is a little more sharper? Because you had to look at something for so long and so hard that it's almost like when you go to the eye doctor and they give you like another lens, and it's like, whoa, I didn't see a tree like that before until I had to describe it.
Yeah.
I didn't know loneliness felt like that until I had to describe it for a character whose body and life I never lived. So all of a sudden,
more acute.
It's acute and robust and throbbing and capacious, and then it's almost like you come out of a gym, right? Not that I know anything about that, but it's like you come out of this laboratory or training ground of perception. And I started to realize that, I think the book is the byproduct of that quest. It's not the main thing. That the bibliography is actually the byproduct. You have to try to write the book as strong as you can, as best as you can make it. The process of trying to do that affords you a better vision, a more open vision of the world. That's just how it has been for me 4 books in. And I thought, wow, what if one day, I hope after 8 books, just arbitrary number, Eightfold Path in Buddhism, I could...
So not arbitrary, very inherent in your religious tradition.
Yes, thank you.
And 8 books, you want 8 books because the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, okay.
Yeah,
After you get there.
and it seems 8 would be enough to say what I want to say. And I thought it would be... My goal for myself is to be able to write 8 books and then be in possession of an acute method of looking at this world without having to turn it into a product.
I want that for you, but then also your audience loses. Then the readers don't get to enjoy the fringe benefit, the outgrowth of your own introspection. But far be it for me to say you need to write 9 because I need to read that 9th one.
I mean, I'll be very lucky if I get to 8. You know, it's 4 and I'm kind of really knocked out. I don't know, knock on wood somewhere, I can even get there, you know.
Okay, Ocean, we're in the last round. Beliefs. 3 new cards.
Okay.
1, 2, or 3.
Okay, 3.
3. Have you made peace with mortality?
Conceptually, it is something that will happen. As a Buddhist, I think energies go on. You know, we call it continuation rather than death in Buddhism. So conceptually, but I haven't had the strength to anticipate the pain around it, the pain around my loved ones, having been on the other side, having lost loved ones. The pain is so immense, and there's nothing like it. You know, you grieve continually, but death only happens once. And it's like an earthquake. You know, you feel a lot of trauma, loss. You have to do a lot of repair after an earthquake, but there's nothing like the actual earthquake. You cannot replicate that feeling. And when you go through it, that the impact is very idiosyncratic and unique. And that impact is felt but not experienced every day. And so it could easily, you know, you can easily lose track of that pain. And I think there's no way to truly prepare for it. And I know that, having been through it. So conceptually, I'm at peace, but I don't think I will ever be prepared for the amount of vexation it will cause the people around me.
It's true, isn't it? You can work yourself up to a point. I practice dying. This sounds so grim, but I do sort of, it's a very strange practice, but it's sort of my MO to like imagine the worst case scenario and see if I'm still able to like survive. And sometimes I practice the nothingness and I'm like, I think I'm okay. And then, of course, it's the fixation because I've also lost people in my life. I lost my mom as well. And I know what that grief is. And so then I fixate on my kids and what that grief would feel like to them. And that's a hard thing. You can't ever come to peace with that. No. This is not peaceful.
No, and it's okay not to.
It's human and it's life and it's all part of it. And it is not a peaceful realization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to say you'll never come to terms with it.
Yeah, it is. And I think we have to say it more. Last 3, Ocean. 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, let's go with 1.
1. What is your best defense against despair?
I had luck to spend a lot of time in Italy in residencies, and interestingly enough, like a lot of my books get done in Italy, and they have this dance called the tarantella, right? Like the spider dance, and it's just a collective group of people holding hands, dancing in a circle, and the cure was for depression. So they believe that depression comes from being bit by the tarantella, the spider, bites you, and then you get down. And so in order to cure it, you have to, everybody in the community comes together and dance. And I was like, yes, ancient knowledge. The past has answers already.
Yeah.
You know, and we just have to keep pushing it forward rather than assuming that everything starts with us.
Okay, so lastly, we end the show the same way every time, with a trip in our memory time machine. Okay, so in the memory time machine, you revisit one moment from your past. It's not a moment you would change anything about. It's just a moment you would like to linger in a little bit longer. What moment do you choose?
I think it was moving into an apartment for the first time with my now partner. There was so much hope. And, you know, what you often expect from that is say, well, there was so much hope and it all went downhill. That's kind of the dramatic turn. But what I love about that moment was that all of our hope and aspirations founded on love, we really made good on. It wasn't easy, but, we built a life from that very difficult, humble first date. We had nothing, just our little belongings. Both of us don't come from generational wealth. We both come from refugee families, coming from war. His family fleeing Stalin, and my family fleeing, the Vietnam War. And we were just sitting in this empty apartment in Queens, looking at each other in absolute awe. Like, wow, we made it. We're going to do. And it felt like the first apartment again in Hartford with my family. And I think it's all kind of this one stream of building on things. And looking back on that, how we were able to do something beyond our hopes. Our hopes were actually quite humble. And we were able to, make a life where we can then not only support each other, but now support our families. And again, being in a room amongst each other, that I would, because it was all possibility. It wasn't like...
What did it look like?
It was just an empty one-bedroom apartment. I'm not good with square footage, maybe 900 square feet. I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not a math person. But, this grimy kitchen filled with like layers of grease that you don't even know what the original color was in the tile. It was roach infested. But we were on top of the world. And, and I think that moment kind of informs everything. That it felt like the ship being pushed away from the dock. And we didn't know where we were headed, but it was so exhilarating to do that.
That was beautiful. Ocean Vuong, his newest book is called The Emperor of Gladness. It was so good to talk with you and do this with you. Thank you.
So good. I got to write faster so I can talk to you more often.
That would be awesome.